So let's see the status if it is finished for participants. Let's start with the. So how many people are running the scan as we speak? All right, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. I have 9 participants who are currently running the scan. Let's start with Shiva. So Shiva already confirmed that the scan got completed. However, there seems to be some authentication issue. Because of this authentication issue, he has not been able to identify, he has not been able to discover, or the scanner appliance was not able to discover the installed applications. Right, Shiva?
No, the authentication was successful.
Yeah, authentication was successful, but then there are permission issue basically. Not
The
authentication.
vulnerabilities were not.
Permission issue. That is known as permission issue.
Okay.
So we basically call it insufficient permission.
Okay.
Authentication successful basically means that the credentials are correct. However, insufficient permissions. Okay. All right, Vipin. Vipin, is your scan completed?
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet. Leave it. Alex, is that completed for you?
Yes, with all results.
Okay, and were you able, did the scan able to identify the installed softwares and applications?
Let's see.
Okay,
I have
please share your
a bunch. I have yes.
Okay, yes, it was able to identify. Do you know how I know? Because it says total 613. If you're running a perimeter scan outside in scan, the number of vulnerabilities would not be more than 100. If it says 613, it means that yes, it was able to authenticate. Now let's scroll it down. Okay, scroll it down.
Okay.
Keep coming down. And there we go. Okay. SSL Windows Explorer. No, click on information gathered. I'm saying on the first VM 10.0.4, you have vulnerabilities only expanded. Expand the other ones also.
Okay, sure.
Okay, scroll it down. Here, do we see Windows? No. Okay, no worries. Let's scroll it down. I don't see those softwares and applications. That's okay. Let's look for the other VM. Is that the same case for the other VMs also?
Let me collapse this.
Yeah, collapse them.
Yeah, let's go for the other one.
The other one is the same case because I don't see. So you have VLC, Adobe, or other applications installed, right? Chrome, Firefox, all that.
On the VMs, I didn't install them because no one told us to install them.
Okay. All right. So guys, please note that the scan was completed successfully in case of Alex. However, he has not installed any application. That's the reason you don't see applications here. But the scan got completed successfully, right? Okay, so Alex, this is working fine in your case. Now, what I would request you to do while I go through other participants, quickly go ahead and install some applications like, let's say, VLC Media Player, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, Adobe Acrobat Reader on your virtual machines, and then rerun the scan.
Okay, great.
Yeah, great.
Sure.
Thank you. You can stop.
I have installed and scanned the VM, and it's showing in my results, scan results.
It's just showing in scan results, which means your configuration is right. You have followed all the right steps, and it is a full scan now. Okay, please share your screen so that others can see. Okay, so yes, VLC is shown. Now look at the number of vulnerabilities. It will be more. Total number of vulnerabilities is 493. Okay, and scroll it down. How many VMs did you include in the scan? 3, 2, 1?
Yeah, total 3.
3 VMs. Great.
Where is that actually?
On the top, it starts with the summary. You can see in the summary, These are the VMs that got scanned, and then come at the bottom. You will also see at the bottom that how many hosts were included in the scan and out of which how many it was able to scan in the detailed results. Scroll it down, keep coming down. Keep coming down. Keep coming down. Appendix over here. So in the appendix, you will see. So in the appendix, it says that successfully scanned 4 to 6, which is 4, 5, and 6, 3 VMs. Target distribution, which means all the VMs were scanned by Raghavendra Qualys PSA appliance. Host not scanned. Any host that was not scanned is 10.0.0.7. Probably it is the virtual scanner appliance itself. You can check which IP address relates to this. I'm saying which host relates to this IP address. Okay, so obviously scanner would not scan itself. Okay, all right, next. Windows authentication was successful for those 3 hosts on the go up. Yeah, you can see the authentication was successful for these 2 hosts. Okay, which means 4 was not scanned. I'm saying 4 was scanned, but on 4, you probably have insufficient permissions. Now let's go up on the scan results. You will see that the number of vulnerabilities identified on 4 will be less as compared to 5 and 6. Look at the 4, very low. I'm saying it has not been able to discover any application on the number 4. So what it means that on the number 4, the authentication was successful, but due to insufficient permissions, it was not able to run the complete vulnerability scan. Make sense, Raghavendra?
Yes.
Now, how do you fix it? Those 5, 6 settings that I was talking about, log into that VM and verify that you have all of those settings in place.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Great. Now I can also tell you now, how do you know that I'm too sure about it? Go back to the portal, VMDR portal. I'll show you where exactly you verify it. Now this is for you, Shiva also. This is where we verify. In the portal, go to authentication. And this is for everyone. Now, right next to your authentication credential, you see details tab. Click on details tab. At the bottom, you see details. At the extreme end, extreme right, details. Here it will tell you what has happened. See that VM.4. So 5 and 6, it was passed. That's the reason you were able to identify everything. And 4, it did not pass. So that is where I know. Now it says the host was not scanned with the VM module. So this host was not scanned using the authenticated scan. And the reason is one of those permissions are missing. Right? Now, if you want to see what all permissions was missing, there is another way. Go to policy compliance. Click on VMDR module and go to policy compliance module. Similar to, so VMDR is one module, go to other modules. Yeah. Go to under compliance, you see policy compliance module. Come down. Yep, this policy compliance. Click on policy compliance. Yeah, over here. Now in this module, you also see authentication. Click on assets in this module and then click on authentication. No. Policies. Sorry, scans. Click on scans. Authentication. Okay, now click on details. Now it will tell you. Okay, so it will not come unless you run a policy compliance scan. But in this module, now it is the same window. Authentication tab here and in VMDR module. The benefit of this tab is in policy compliance that once you run the first policy compliance scan, and for sure 10.0.0.4 will not be included, then it will exactly tell you that where exactly the permissions are not available or where exactly it has insufficient permissions. That's the beauty of this authentication tab versus the other which is there in VMDR module. Make sense?
Yes.
Raghavendra?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So go ahead, identify all the 5 settings on then on 10.0.0.4. You may have missed one of those settings because of which that VM was not included. So fix that setting and come back and rerun the scan.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do this exercise real quick, guys. Vipin, what's the status? Is the scan still running?
Yeah, it's showing completed. Let me
Completed. Can you check whether it was able to discover all the applications, softwares and program on your virtual machines, and was it able to identify vulnerabilities at the same time?
Yes, I've installed the Mozilla and Chrome. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So in your case, it was done. However, no application was installed on the VMs. Okay. Prashant, what's the status?
Scan is completed. Let me
Did it
share my
verify? Did it
screen.
discover all the
Yeah,
applications?
it's I haven't installed so many applications. Only one machine I have installed applications and it detected the vulnerabilities. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, please do that.
This is the scan
Hmm.
result.
Okay. On the result,
Authentication of
show me the.
successful.
Yeah, okay. And for which VM you had applications? So you included 2 VMs in the scan, right?
3.
3 VMs. You included 3 VMs. Okay. Come down. Hmm. So for .4, it was, so .4 seems did not have any application on it. No, okay, you meant,
No.
okay. So that's the reason it has just provided you basic information.
Yes.
.5, it also did not have any application on it. Okay. But even on .6, I do not see the application. Which application are you talking about?
I think I installed one browser on one of the
But I don't see
machines.
that vulnerability here. And by default, browsers have vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Okay. So in your case, you also need to verify. Go to the authentication tab and see whether the authentication was successful or not. VMDR module. Okay. No, okay. Over here. Yeah, it passed. So for one VM, 5, it did not.
Okay.
Authenticate. Okay, so you don't have applications. Probably that application that you're talking about did not have vulnerability. Okay, so what you can do, I'm saying to be 100% sure or to understand the full potential of the solution, go ahead and deploy some additional applications like VNC Media Player. Okay,
Okay.
an older
Okay.
version of
Got it.
Chrome, older version of Firefox, right?
Scan is completed, but I'm not able to see many vulnerabilities. Only 154 is showing.
Okay, kindly share your screen.
I think I need to install all the application.
You've not installed any application, Anand?
One VM completed all the applications. And
Can you please share your
rest,
screen?
yeah, I'm sharing my screen. So this is the result.
Okay, let me check. Just come at the bottom. Directly come at the bottom in the appendix section. Stay there. So authentication was successful in your case. 7 was not included because it's an appliance, which is good. Go up. Now, did you not install applications on these VMs, Anand?
Only one machine I have installed.
Which machine?
That is public IP address. This machine.
This machine. Which machine is this? I would say, can you go to the portal and see which machine is this? Azure portal. This one is Windows 10. Okay.
Yeah.
That's your
Oh.
window. Now go back to the result. and see if it has identified vulnerabilities against those applications. Go up. This one is Windows 10.
Yeah, this one.
But I don't see any application related vulnerability. What all applications have you installed on this VM, Anand?
Yeah, I'll show you. Yeah, Google Chrome, VLC player.
Okay, open command prompt on this VM. I want to see which VM is this. Probably, yeah, command prompt. Type host name in the command prompt. What is this? IP address, IP config. This one is 1.7. No, this is your local system. You're on local system. That's your local system. Go inside the VM. You're not on the VM. Go inside the VM. Click at the bottom. You see remote desktop. Is this okay? Now minimize this browser or close the browser. I see multiple remote desktop. That's the reason I'm confused here. Which remote desktop are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah,
So this is your public VM. And then I also see a remote desktop of 10.5.
yes, correct.
10.5 was another VM. So you
Yes.
have these on this VM, right? Now go back
Yes.
to your scan results. The scan results is incomplete. So your applications are not getting identified, Anand, which basically means those 5 settings that I was talking about. One of those settings is not enabled here, because of which it is not able to scan those applications, right? So you need to make sure that you cross check please cross check those settings and rerun the scan again.
Okay, sure.
I
I'll
want
install update
each
also.
participant to be able to run the authenticated scan, because that's the crux of VMDR. If you're not able to run authenticated scan successfully, then the entire exercise or efforts that we have invested in the last 4 days, they are of no use, because that's the crux of the exercise now. Okay, so please make sure that you verify the settings and rerun the scan once again. Okay, next is Praveen. Praveen, what's the status?
Yeah, Raghu, scan completed.
Scan completed, right? Did it find vulnerabilities in the application?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, kindly show your screen. I'm saying I want to see that scan result window. Alt tab.
This one. Okay.
Yeah, this window. Maximize this window. Okay, Praveen. Scroll it down.
Okay.
Do you see application related vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I installed it in this one only.
Okay,
Yeah.
then show me the application related. Yep, it's there. See, now this is for other participants. You can see Mozilla Firefox is there, VLC is there. So the reason I asked you to install these applications, because by default, these applications have vulnerabilities and they are perfect applications for any vulnerability management training. So Praveen, in your case, it is only visible on one VMs.
Yes.
Did you not install these applications on other VMs?
No. I didn't install.
Okay, so now you understood the process, right? The entire process, whether
Yes,
it is 1 VM or 1000 VM, the process will remain the same.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. You can stop sharing.
Okay.
So in case of Prashant and Praveen, I can see that it was completed successfully. Vulnerabilities identified. Okay, next is Mayank. Mayank, what is the status?
Still in progress, Raghuveer.
Okay, scan is in progress.
Yeah.
Did you rerun the scan?
No. Actually, I have taken
Oh,
some
you're trying to
time
catch up.
regarding
Yeah,
that.
okay. No problem. Satish, what is the status?
Scan completed, Raghuveer.
Scan completed. Please share your screen. So scan completed. Click on the scan and then click on view results. Okay, result is already there. Expand it. Do you see application vulnerabilities?
No, Raghuveer, I haven't installed any applications.
You have not installed any application.
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, we will not be able to validate whether your authenticated scan was successful, but that's okay. So what I want you to do, install some applications on these VMs, at least 1 or 2 applications, and rerun the scan once again, so that you can also see the full potential of Qualys. Okay?
Okay.
Wait, done. We are left with Vipin. Vipin, what's the status?
The scan has been completed.
Mm-hmm.
I was not installed with any of the application. I am rerunning the scan once again. I'll share my screen.
You're rerunning the scan after installing the applications.
Oh yeah, correct. That's right. So this is the result I have got first after the first scan.
This is the second. This is the rerun scan result, right?
No. The first one.
The first one. Okay, that's okay. This one I've seen. I'm more interested in seeing the next one, the other one that will come.
Here
Okay.
also VLC is already there. I think. One second. VLC.
Show me.
No, VLC is not there. It will come in the next one. I'll reshare
Yeah.
and I'll.
Sure,
restart
no
the-
worries. Okay. All right. All right, Mike, whenever your scan is complete, please let me know. Now I'll take the control once again and I'll show the results on my screen.
Sure, Raghuveer.
Okay, I'll refresh my screen. Probably my scan is also completed. Okay, so my scan is also completed. You can see. I'll click on the results now. And now this scan took 21 minutes, 10 seconds. As I said, on an average, Qualys will take 5 minutes each host. That's the average scan duration when you're running a full vulnerability scan. Because our vulnerability scan was full. We selected the default profile and the default profile performs a lot of vulnerability checks. That's the reason it takes on an average 5 minutes per instance. So it took a total of 21 minutes, 10 seconds. You all can see here on my screen. I'm highlighting that 21 minutes, 10 seconds. Now I'll click on results. Okay, now let's just understand how do we go about understanding this result, because it may not happen that as a vulnerability management professional, you will be running the scan, because this is one-time configuration. After we have received desired results, what we do, we schedule the scan. So if this scan provided me desired information, if this scan was able to authenticate successfully, was able to discover all the applications, so all the participants who are currently busy in installing applications, please stop doing it and please focus on what I'm explaining. So what we do as part of the design and implementation phase of vulnerability management solution, we run sample scan. When sample scan provides us desired information, we schedule that scan and convert that as a production scan. So if this scan has provided me desired information, what I'll do, I will schedule the scan probably daily, once in a week, twice a week, and then every time the scan will be finished, I will be receiving an email report. The similar report I will receive in the email, and I can basically take action on those report if I'm an outsider or if I am an admin. Now the people who are part of vulnerability management or people who are into SOC team or vulnerability management team, their job is to constantly look at a vulnerability management module. I'm saying their job is to constantly look here, which is vulnerabilities dashboard, and they will be looking for all the vulnerabilities In the dashboard, you will click on vulnerabilities, and here it will show all the vulnerabilities. Now they can filter these vulnerabilities. Now this part I'll cover later on, but this is the another way of looking for vulnerabilities in near real time. Let's just focus on the results first. So when we are looking at the result, we see launch date, we see total active host. Total active has host basically means host against which vulnerability scan was successfully performed. Total host basically means total number of hosts, those were included in the scan. Probably some of them were dead, some of them did not respond, or some of those IP addresses were blank. So that's the total host. Type is on demand because I ran it on demand. Status finished. This is the reference of the scan. If there is any issue with this scan or the vulnerabilities or the discovery that it has done that you want to discuss with Qualys, Qualys technical support would ask you for this reference ID. And with that, they can look for the scan results in the backend. Scanner applies that was included in the scan. The scanner applies signature version. Everything is here. Total duration of the scan. Then the authentication. So it shows Windows authentication was successful for 4 hosts. Then title. This was the title. Asset group. It did not include asset group. I actually provided IP addresses. So it shows me IP addresses. I did not exclude any IP. No FQDN was supplied. And the option profile that was included in the scan was Qualys recommended option profile. Now a total of 3,404 vulnerabilities are identified as part of the scan, and the average security risk of those vulnerabilities 5. 5 is a bad score. 5 is something that you need to be looking at on priority. 5 means critical vulnerability. Let's look at the vulnerability bifurcation. So if you look at the bifurcation, a total of 233 severity 5 vulnerabilities are identified in these 4 VMs. So 233 vulnerabilities that I need to prioritize for remediation because they are severe. 1,692 vulnerabilities are at severity 4, which is lower than critical, but they are equally critical. Then 591 vulnerabilities are at severity score 3, which is in between. You know, it's like meets expectation. Then a total of 77 are at score 2, and there is no vulnerability at score 1. Similarly, these are confirmed vulnerabilities. Then potential vulnerabilities. What is potential vulnerability? Potential vulnerability basically means that the system has that Qualys has identified a misconfiguration. If you do not fix that misconfiguration, it may potentially lead to a vulnerability in future. That's potential vulnerabilities. So obviously no potential vulnerability will be at severity 5, because if there is any potential vulnerability which will be at severity 5, it will automatically become a vulnerability, a confirmed vulnerability at probably severity 3 and 4. That's the reason you see number 0 here. Then you see some additional. Then similarly, information gathered. Information gathered is more of a configurations that it reads, and that also provides you some visibility into vulnerabilities. So you can see a total number here, which is 3404. Now, 5 biggest category of vulnerabilities. You can see most of the vulnerabilities are identified locally. Local category, which is 2531, which means they are locally present on the virtual machines. They are not external vulnerabilities. They are not network vulnerabilities. They are locally present. Let's scroll it down. Then comes vulnerability by severity. So these type of graphs and reports you probably want to share with your management so that they can quickly consume the data instead of looking into the minute details. So you can see here, severity 5 vulnerabilities are approximately 300 plus. Less than 300, which is 233. You see this graph, the chart here. Then the operating systems detected as part of this scan, a total of 4 operating systems are detected. Windows 10, 2016, 2022, and 2019. Services detected. These are the services which are running on these operating systems. And now the detailed results. So I'll show you the detailed result for one VM, and it remains the same for other VMs also. Okay, so the detailed results for, let's say, 2019. Now 2019 has got a total of 653 vulnerabilities, which are of severity 5. You can see severity 5. I'm saying a total of 653 vulnerabilities, out of which first few vulnerabilities are of severity 5. Let's see what these vulnerabilities are. You can see now intentionally when I deployed Firefox on my virtual machine, I deployed an older version of it. So Qualys was quick to identify that the version of Firefox that you have deployed is end of life already, which means this version is obsolete. There is no security patches available for this version. And if I click on this vulnerability, it will provide me the details of this vulnerability. So let's look at the detail of this vulnerability. Now this is Qualys ID. So common vulnerability exploit database is is globally available, which is known as CVE. Qualys has its own vulnerability database, which is known as Qualys Vulnerability Database ID. So Qualys has consolidated multiple CVEs into one ID, one identifier. That's Qualys identifier for this vulnerability. It's a security vulnerability. There is no associated CVE here. The reference of this vulnerability is Firefox end of life. Now, Qualys, the vulnerability score is 10, which is it's a high risk vulnerability. And then is this a PCI vulnerability? Yes. So if I run a PCI DSS scan on this VM, this will also be, this specific vulnerability will be present there also, because as per the 12 requirements of PCI DSS, you should not be running an outdated software and application on the server. So it's a PCI DSS. Then it provides you the details of the vulnerability, that what this vulnerability is to a layman. If that person wants to understand, it says that Firefox is a free and open source web browser that render web pages, which implements current anticipated web standards. The current stable release of Firefox is version 81. That was released on October. The current release, which basically means the one that it has detected is this, and this release was detected on this date, 2020. And then it says impact. Since the vendor no longer provides updates, obsolete softwares is more vulnerable to viruses and other attacks, exposing the system to security vulnerabilities. So since I've intentionally installed this older version and I have identified this vulnerability, now the only solution to this vulnerability is either I upgrade it to the latest version, or I will uninstall this and download the latest version. So it says the solution: upgrade to the latest version of Firefox from Mozilla product website. It also gives me a hyperlink of the product website wherein I can wherein I can go and download the updated version of the Firefox also for my desktop from here. So I'll go back to the vulnerability. Then similarly, compliance, it's not applicable. Right now, you've not enabled a policy compliance scan. That's the reason it says not applicable. Exploitability, it's coming. Associated malware, there is no malware here. And where exactly this vulnerability was found, it is found on this here. This is the path of the vulnerability, which is C program files. So this is how you decipher a vulnerability. Now, whether you are reading this information from vulnerability dashboard, whether you're reading this information from here, you can also find this vulnerability here, or whether you are reading it from vulnerability results, it's one and the same thing. You will see the same information in the vulnerability dashboard also. So similarly, you see a couple of vulnerabilities here. Now, there are multiple vulnerabilities related to Firefox because each vulnerability has its specific information. When you fix one, automatically others will be fixed. Similarly, let's scroll it down and let's see some vulnerabilities related to Google Chrome also. That's the same thing here. Then we have some vulnerabilities, additional vulnerabilities for media player also, VLC media player. So you can see VLC media player vulnerabilities also. These are vulnerabilities for media player. So whenever you click on a vulnerability, it will always show you the remediation or the fix for that vulnerability. For example, this vulnerability, VLC media player remote code execution vulnerability. Now this vulnerability, if we look at this vulnerability, this is the Qualys ID for this vulnerability. The associated CVEs are this. So there are multiple CVEs for this vulnerability. You can click on each CVE. That will take you to the common vulnerability exploit database, which is publicly available, and that will give you detailed information about this vulnerability. When was the last time it was discovered? When was the last time it was updated? What is the appropriate fix for it? All that information You will find it on cvmitre.org database. So all the information that it talks about the threat, it talks about the impact and solutions. So the same solution here, because I intentionally downloaded the older version of Firefox, it says customers are advised to download the latest version from VLC Media Player download page. So if I click on it, it will take me to the latest. It will take me to the OEM website wherein I can download the latest version, which is version 3.0.21. Okay. Next, so you can see the compliance related information also. Compliance not applicable because we have not included that part here. And then exploitability of this vulnerability. So similarly, you see a lot of vulnerabilities here, and you see a lot of vulnerabilities with respect to this VM. Then comes the other VM, which is the same VM because we have the same software on all the VMs. So I will see the same vulnerability for this VM also, which is the end of life Firefox. All the vulnerabilities are same for all the 4 VMs. You see a lot of vulnerabilities here. It is the same vulnerability for this VM also, for the 3rd VM, and similarly for the 4th VM. Now let's look at the information gathered. Now this field, let's also look at the potential vulnerabilities. So some potential vulnerabilities, which means related to VLC Media Player, you have confirmed severity 5 vulnerabilities and you have severity 4 vulnerability also. So once you fix VLC Media Player, once you download and install the updated version of it, it will be fixed. Now you can do it through patch management solution. You can do it through software packaging solution. If you're using BigFix, WSOS, SCCM, you can probably use software packaging capability of the solution, download the latest version of Firefox, Mozilla, Google Chrome, and push it to the respective VMs where vulnerability was identified. And then you can rerun the report and see whether in the updated report, the same vulnerability is detected or it has disappeared now. So that's the typical vulnerability management process that we continue to do. And it continues to run all the time. It's not a project that you deliver and then you move on. It's a continuous improvement. Okay, so over here, now you can see some additional vulnerabilities. For example, it says global user list found using other QIDs. So global user list, you can see these are the user accounts that are found. Look at the vulnerability severity is 2, which is it is more of an information level vulnerability. This vulnerability basically says that on your system, you have a lot of global user. Global user basically means local admin users. So we have test users, we have Azure users. So now how do you fix this vulnerability? It says to prevent your host from being attacked, do one of the following. Remove or rename unnecessary accounts. For example, if you're not using test user, remove it. Shut down unnecessarily network services. Ensure the passwords to these accounts are kept secret and they are strong. Use a firewall to restrict access to your host from unauthorized domains. So this is more of an information that they are sharing. It's not a vulnerability, but it may lead to a vulnerability if this test user account gets compromised. If there's a successful brute force attack on this account, then it becomes a vulnerability. Next, information. Now over here, you can also find out whether you were able to run a successfully authenticated scan. For example, you can look for this information, which is operating system detected. If it is able to detect the operating system, it means that the credentials were correct. The credentials, the authentication credentials that you supplied were correct. That's the reason it was able to authenticate and it was able to detect the operating system. But it will not do anything beyond if it does not have access to file and printer sharing, if it does not have access to remote registry, if it does not have access, if UAC is not disabled. So that's what you can see here. Now, other vulnerabilities you can see here, administrator's account real name found from LSA 11 years. So there's another vulnerability which says real name is found. So it knows that in Azure, by default, the username of Azure is Azure user. And that's what you are using here. So it becomes easier for somebody to execute a brute force attack on this VM because they would already know the username. All they need to identify is the password of the vulnerability. Okay, next. So similarly, you can see other vulnerabilities here. I'm more of an information that you see here. Then you can see Windows driver security analysis. Okay, over here. This is important. Last successful user login. Now here it also tells you the users who were logged into this VM successfully, the last few users. So here you can see the information. The last successful user login was able to determine. So here you can see there is no exploitability, there is no malware associated, and that user, last login user, is admin. So with this vulnerability, if you find this, it basically means that you were able to successfully authenticate to the VM because you log in as an admin. So you can see Windows share with everyone group having full control because we have enabled it ourselves. We've enabled the file and print sharing. That's the reason it is coming. All other vulnerabilities, Mozilla Firefox web browser detected, Google Chrome web browser detected. They're just information. That's it. So these are all the vulnerabilities or the vulnerabilities that you have, that you have found on the system. In the information, it also talks about disk usage information. Now you will say that how come this is a vulnerability, disk usage? Disk usage is not a vulnerability, but there are malwares who will replicate itself in such a manner that it will occupy the entire disk space of your VM. Then it becomes a vulnerability. So what you need to focus on, you don't need to focus on this. As per your organization vulnerability management policy, they primarily focus on vulnerabilities which are of severity 4 and 5. And sometimes they also focus on vulnerability which are severity 3 and 2. But most of the organizations, to reduce the noise or to optimize the vulnerability management or to unnecessarily reduce the administrative overhead, they primarily focus on priority 4, severity 4 and severity 5 vulnerability in most of the organizations. So this is how you run the authenticated scan from the scanner appliance. Now, since this scan is successful, I was able to successfully run the scan. The results are, as per the expectations. What I will do, I will navigate to my portal. This is the last step of vulnerability management from the design and implementation and configuration perspective, is that I will navigate to the scan. I'll go to the scans. I'll select the scan. This was the last successful. Okay, so they have removed this information. Earlier, you would have an option to schedule the scan from here itself, because this was your authenticated scan, successful scan. So in the quick action, they have removed it, but that's okay. You can click on schedules, which is the third tab. On the schedules, you can click on new and you can click on schedule scan, new schedule scan. So we are running a new schedule scan, which is the last stage of this exercise. So I can say full production scan Windows, and I can put today's date just for the reference purpose. Select myself as an owner, option profile. I'll select my option profile, which is Qualys recommended option profile. Since this is a full scan, I'm scheduling it. I can keep it at medium priority. Select my scanner appliance, which is VSA. Select my target host. I can select tags or assets. I can select asset group also. I have an asset group, which is Azure VM, and all VMs have this Azure VM tag, or I can put the IP addresses also from my address management view. So I can select these IPs, whichever option you want to do, whether you want to use an asset group, whether you want to use the IP address range, whether you want to use a tag also. Tag will not work in case if you do not have a connector. Exclude any IPs from this range, because in a production you may have 1000 VMs that you're running a schedule scan for. So you can exclude the VMs, FQDN, then scheduling, and I can say let's do the scan every day. So I can put today's time, which is 9 o'clock in the evening today, as per India Standard Time, and daily. It will run daily, and I will probably say weekly. And I want to run the scan on, let's say I don't want to bother it on weekends. So Saturday and Sunday it will not run the scan. Qualys scanner appliance also deserves some rest here. Next, notification. If I want to select notifications a day before the scan starts, or probably let's say 10 minutes before the scan starts, that the scan is starting, any message in the notification, and then send the notification after the scan is finished with the custom message, all that I can configure in the notification. Then schedule status. I can create the schedule but deactivate this task, but I want it to run, so I will say save. So now I have configured this. I have scheduled a full vulnerability scan for my production systems, which will run at 9 o'clock in the evening on weekdays as per the option profile, authentication credentials, IP addresses that I've supplied. So this is the last stage of design, architecture, implementation, and configuration for VMDR. Now, what are we left with is basically end user activities, which is how do we look at vulnerability? How do we look at various vulnerabilities which are identified? Now, this process comes with practice. I can explain that, and I will explain that in the next session. I will spend half an hour talking about all of these steps. However, the more you work with these tabs, the more you work into operations, you will have more expertise. You will be quick to identify a specific vulnerability, search for a specific vulnerability based on assets, based on vulnerability. Let's say I want to search for vulnerabilities of a specific asset. Then these are my assets. I can quickly, let's say I want to search for all the vulnerabilities of Windows 10. I can select the asset and now I can click on vulnerabilities here. Now these vulnerabilities are specific to this asset only. So this is more of an operational job, that how as a vulnerability management professional L1, L2, L3, based on my roles and responsibilities, based on my assigned assigned assets or virtual machines, how will I on day-to-day basis look into the system, look for vulnerabilities, uh, you know, uh, find out all high critical or severity 5 vulnerabilities, and then how do I prioritize them? How do I resolve those vulnerabilities? Some vulnerabilities may require system, application software upgrade. Some vulnerability may require configuration changes. Some vulnerabilities may require them to uninstall obsolete software completely. So this is more of a process that we follow in vulnerability management team. That is something that will come by practice, but I'll give you a quick overview probably in the next session before we get on to the policy, policy compliance and file integrity monitoring. And we will also talk about the next option, which is the agenda for the next session. So first I'll give you a quick walkthrough. Will not spend more than half an hour here. Vulnerability management dashboard walkthrough. Then we'll talk about virtual scanner appliance versus the next next sensor that I want to talk about. So what are the pros and cons of this approach, and why Qualys had to come up with this cloud agent concept, and why organizations are today primarily prioritizing cloud agent over virtual scanner appliance or external scanners. And then we will go ahead and deploy and configure cloud agent. And after that, we will start with policy compliance and then file integrity monitoring. In the policy compliance, our focus will be on PCI DSS. So this is the agenda for next or subsequent sessions for the rest of the week. Is everyone with me on this? Any questions, clarifications, or suggestions that you may have, please let me know. For those who ran the scan but could not find any vulnerabilities because there was no application installed on the VM, please make sure that you install some applications on the VM. And while you install, do not install the updated version. Look for an outdated version or an older version so that it can be identified as vulnerability. If you already have applications installed but could not find the vulnerabilities, probably because of these issues, probably because of these 5 configurations which are not up to the mark. That's the reason it happened. So please make sure that you fix it and then you run the vulnerability management scan. That's what you need to do. Now, for those who have run the vulnerability management scan successfully, In their case, for example, Praveen, Prashant, you were able to done it. You all and others were able to do it successfully. What you need to do, you will need to now look at the report, the results of vulnerability scan, and then take action against those results. For example, identify one of the VM, look for the vulnerabilities and try and resolve it, probably by uninstalling Firefox or by updating Firefox, probably removing media player or updating it, and then rerun the scan. And then compare both the scan results, the previous one and the new one. And you will notice that number of vulnerabilities identified will be less, and the vulnerabilities those were identified in the previous report related to a software and application after you remediated it is either absent or there are some additional information that is coming. So you need to do this exercise yourself in your spare time, because if I do this exercise, or what I can do, I can do this exercise in the backend wherein I have one scan that I've shown you the results for. I will identify one VM, remove all the vulnerabilities or fix all the vulnerabilities and rerun the scan. Then in the next session, I will show you both the scan results simultaneously on my window side by side, and you will notice that I was able to take care of those vulnerabilities, which is more of a end user activity that as a vulnerability management professional, we do in that team day in, day out. So this is something that I expect you to do in your spare time and come back with questions or any guidance that you may require so that we can focus on more activities or more production activities into the session, because we are left with 3 sessions and I want to focus and I want to make sure that I cover every minute aspect of the remaining modules, which is policy compliance and file integrity monitoring.